to be honest, I can't really think of so-called any money myths to my head. So maybe I'll just elaborate more on what MJ you just mentioned in terms of the buying a house by age of 30. So I believe those are so-called statements that originate from a different era, in at different times and so on. So I mean, with globalization and so on, of course, COVID is a bummer. But if let's say COVID were not to have happened, I mean, you can basically just hop on the plane and then you can just fly anywhere in the world. So a house actually ties you down in this age of globalization, and also having had the privilege of staying in the UK as well. So I also had the chance to visit a lot of European countries during the summer. So you actually see that this world is actually very big. So buying a house just tying you by age 30, by 30 years old is a very young age. I mean, you still have your whole life in front of you. Maybe you could just decide to go to work in Singapore. You could just decide to go to work in any countries you want. So I think, yeah, first, so buying a house by 30, I think it might not be that relevant in this age anymore. So
before we begin the podcast, have you gotten your free ebook? It's called the Build a Six-Figure Portfolio Guidebook. Now, inside it, we share with you the tips and tricks to bring your stock investing skills to the next level. The best part, it's only 10 pages long and it's totally free. Whether you're on Spotify or YouTube, the link to download is in the description, or you can go to www.firl.co/FREE or www.firl.co/free.
Welcome everybody back to the FIRL Podcast, best place for long-term stock investing. Today is, well, as usual, we have special guests, but today is also a very special day for us because it's the very first time we're getting two people on, right? And I can't wait to learn more about these two individuals. And to give some context, we have actually never met each other, but we got into contact in some sense through a platform, Stockbit, right? Our good friend Rondi runs the place. Actually, I don't know whether he will say that he runs the place, but certainly he is one of the most followed person there, and Stockbit is Rondi, right, guys? Rondi is Stockbit.
Hey, MJ, we had a point the podcast to Rondi. We're going to have it in the link on the top right. So, top right is here. Here.
Yeah, you're pretty right. So, so basically, today we have two engineers. Now, the reason we're bringing two engineers on is because, one, we found that when they were presenting on Stockbit, they were presenting very comprehensive on the semiconductor space. And the most important is that they sourced us, they used us as a reference. So there's an automatic invite into our podcast. Right, so welcome to the podcast, Asher. And how do you want me to call you? Is it Weei Kai? Is that the correct one?
Yeah, you can call me Weei Kai.
Weei Kai, okay, all right. Welcome, Asher and Weei Kai, to the podcast. So, we always want to begin with your story, right? And we want to know, before investing, before any of this, what were you like when you were younger?
Maybe we start with Weei Kai first.
Okay. Actually, it's on my script also. So, I started saving pretty young. I think it's on primary school. So at that time, my parents give me pocket money. So I remember that always my pocket is full of the shilling inside my Pokemon Ash Ketchum wallet. So it's full of shilling, and then I can see my pocket is basically bulking, bloated. So that's my first stage of saving. Start from primary school. I basically start from there. Then later on, I have a few more things to do. So Should I continue?
maybe describe yourself as not so much from the money angle, but probably from a student angle. Were you more of an introvert or an extrovert? Were you more how would I say? Were you very gung ho to earn a lot of money, or you just wanted to follow your parents' advice on get a good piece of education, get a degree, and what was it like, and what inspired you to be an engineer? And then I'm coming to you, Asher. So be prepared.
All right.
Yeah.
What inspired me to be an engineer? To be honest, I don't think my first what do you call it? The occupation I want to be is, I think from starting I want to be a pilot.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where pilots come in place. Then later on it become something else lah. So in the end, why is it become engineer? Is because my mom is actually she's already can say a pioneer in probably the plating side or something else. She's already probably close more than 20 years of experience in the back end side. So you can say that she has the biggest influence on me on becoming an engineer.
Okay, I see. And was your dad or mom probing you to go into that direction in a way?
No, they don't like. Actually, my sister also in the end become an engineer, chemical engineer. So basically, we are a family of engineer, but my dad is he stopped being an engineer and work outside. So three of us are still as an engineer till now. So they are actually, they don't expect me to become an engineer also, because they know that the semiconductor industry is actually a very cyclical industry, and they have tasted the cycle whereby they come down. So they know the pain of being engineer, the budget rate, all these things, they already taste it lah. So
I see.
So they don't want their children to go and experience this cycle also. But very lucky is that when me and Asher came into this cycle, we are actually on a very boom cycle on a semiconductor. So I'm actually quite lucky in sense, and quite, how do I say, look forward on this industry. But I can say that I won't work for the rest of the time, rest of my life. Just that's why I go into investing, right? So it's a good start for me, I would say, as an engineer.
So we'll talk about the rest of your life later on, but I want to go to Asher right now. And what were you like, when you were younger, and how did you come to become an engineer and an investor?
Oh, okay, all right. So when I was young, I was quite introvert, you could say. I most of the time usually spend, not really studying. There I still like playing basketball with friends and so on, but definitely more on the introvert side. And then in terms of how I aspire to become an engineer, so it might seem a bit weird, but I did not really aspire to be an engineer, similar to like what Weei Kai mentioned. So I had actually a master's degree in chemical engineering from the University of Manchester. So I was lucky enough to have obtained a GPA scholarship of the first cohort for the bursary. So that it's sort of like an award which are given for those who score 9A plus and above in their SPM. So I was lucky enough to be one of them, and also was also able to get a scholarship to study in the UK. So initially, actually, I was not going to go into chemical engineering. I actually had a place for biotech for Imperial College London. But then after asking around, it seems like in order for one to be so-called successful in the biotech industry, you actually need a master's. And at that time, it was only a degree offered by Imperial. So I had a last minute change, and then I changed to chemical engineering. And the reason as to why I went into chemical engineering out of all the branches it's a bit weird as well. So I just asked around and they said, oh, chemical engineering seems to be one of the more difficult branches of engineering. So I just decided to, why not, let's try it. So yeah, that was how I came to chemical engineering. Then now I'm working in the semiconductor industry as Weei Kai. So it's a bit unrelated as well.
So from the point of where you had this aspiration, you had the opportunity to undertake your undergraduate or postgraduate with a scholarship, right? Is there a difference in between after you graduated and the reality of the working life and your relation to what you studied? And what do you see? What do you see is a difference? You know, when you guys were like 17 and you're like, you know, Weei Kai, I was like you, I wanted to be a pilot, and you know, so ironically, all four of us wear specs. I don't know if you noticed, right? I had motion sickness and I couldn't be a pilot. So probably I'll start with Asher in this round. From the aspiration of you doing engineering, asking around for people's advice on what would be a career path, right? Versus the reality of what you're doing today and reality of the things that you're doing. Was it very far apart or was it very close to what you thought it would be after finishing your degree, Asher?
To be honest, it's quite far because I'm also actually a management trainee in my current company. So I instead of, because usually engineer, they will do in more technical aspects and they are quite, how to say, they will just narrow down and focus on one area. So I actually had the opportunity, I would say luck as well, to be selected for this management trainee, and I actually had the opportunity to rotate between 3 different departments. So my first was as a, you could call R&D engineer in terms of one of my company's so-called 7th generation diodes. We can also talk about it later. So that was my first department, purely electrical. So not related at all to my chemical engineering stuff. My next stint was a rotation in the operational planning and controlling as an industrial engineer. At that time, not really as well, because it's more to dealing more with planning, optimizing, and so on. So also not really related as well. But in terms of similarity, that would be because chemical engineering, when we deal, is usually based on a bigger scale, because you design a plant, the reactors, and so I think as oil and gas, you would also be quite familiar as well, I think. So a bit of similarity in terms of having the bigger picture. And now my current department is production, but the thing I'm doing is not the typical sense of production where you go in and monitor tool and so on. So I'm actually also luck again as well. There was a project that deals with using artificial intelligence and machine learning, where I'm working with our company's internal data scientists to come up with an algorithm basically for us to prevent so-called, we call them early excursions, where unexpected incidents or conditions of the tool which resulted in wafer scrap, which basically your product has some damage and you will need to scrap it and so on. So if you say related, not really, although my so-called master's degree actually did something related to so-called machine learning as well. So it's something to do with using an algorithm to sort of like find out in a reservoir, right? You need to find where to drill the well. So you need to come up with some models and so on. So I actually had the opportunity to do that as well. So in terms of similarity, maybe this would be the nearest to what I'm doing now, which is my current project in the production department. Yes.
I see.
So
for Weei Kai, go ahead.
So for Weei Kai, you know, like what is your role now as an engineer? You know, just to give all of us some background.
Yeah, my background is more to process. So compared to Usher, mine is go directly vertical deep lah. So I'm more on the technical side. So what I do now is we call it the wet process. So it's involved a lot of chemical etching, chemical cleaning. So basically doing a lot of chemical things, which is also in tandem to what I'm studying on my bachelor, which is chemical engineering, but I'm more to the biotech industry area.
So how crucial is what you do in terms of in terms of the process? Like what are how crucial is it? And then to simplify things also, whatever you do for your company, like what are some of the end products?
To put it in a layman terms, I think everyone know Franken very well here. So we basically know Franken is doing the cleaning part for my fab is the cassette and the parts lah. So I can take something similar to what the people outside know that is we are basically it's a more advanced thing than Franken's doing on the cleaning side because we have a batch tool, single cleaning tools, and each tool serves a different function. You can be acid based, alkali based, and then a lot of things. So it depends on the application. So you know that the only way to produce a clean wafers is by cleaning, and then how clean is it depends on my process. A lot of it is depends on my process. For example, if I need to go into the furnace step, before the furnace, they need to do a RCA clean. Maybe the outside people can look at what's the RCA clean. It's a very pronounced cleaning method. So all these things, every time a layer is being built, before that we need to clean the previous layer. We need to do a chemical cleaning. Then that involves my process. That is only the front. We call it the cleaning base is only the front end part. And then I'm actually a R&D, so I need to know basically the whole process from the front end to the back end, and then some extra special process I also need to cover that. So the cleaning part is only the front end, and then the back end part is more to the metal etching part.
Right. So now I think I really want to know, how do you all go from something so technical, chemical engineering, all these complicated processes, to investing? Like, when was the time where you realized investing was important? And later on we'll go into how do you guys look at investments. But first, how do you guys get into investing? Any one of you can start first.
Mine will be longer. Okay, I will go first. So let's talk about, I'm actually only 27. So I started my investing journey is on the 2019 March. That is on the stock part. But before that, I have some unit trust, which is started by my parents. So at that time, they just asked me to open an account with this fella, and then every month I just auto deduct 100 ringgit lah. So after 6 or 7 years lah, can you guess what's the return?
3%, 4%, I think.
I think 7 years is already every month is 100 ringgit. I think it's quite a few lah, but in the end it's only earn 100 ringgit. But if you deduct the sales charge, all these things, I think I don't earn anything lah. So my
Can I
parents
take a guess? What is the company color? Is it red in color and white? Red and white. The logo. We shall not name names, but does it have any yellow color or more red and white color?
Or maybe blue.
No, the yellow is, I think it's quite good. The red and the blue, the red and the white one.
Okay.
Let's stop there. Yeah. So you were saying about from there, what happened?
So that's introduced by my mom, and then not my mom, my mom's friend got them to sign up for this fund. Then later on, I don't know what. I also don't know nothing, so I just 100 ringgit only, and what they say I just follow. So I started to cut the fund is when I start to work also. I think it's also on early 2019 or something, when I realized that after so many years only 100 ringgit, that does not make sense. Even You don't need a fund manager to earn only 100 ringgit. I can do that by investing in probably say Pentamaster. How much the return already for 7 years ago.
Wow,
So
a few X Well,
yeah,
Pentamaster for sure, a few
that
X
is 100 ringgit is very ridiculous lah. So
Yeah.
then I think he also know that I think shy or something. So he did not insist me to carry on to invest, and then I told him I want to cut and take out the money already, and I put somewhere else. Might as well I just take it and I invest myself. I think my return is better, and then it's proven because right now it's already I think close to 2 years already in my investing, so I'm basically earning more than 100 ringgit. So yeah, that's my first part of investing is through unit trust. Then the second part also, a lot of things is happening through these years lah. So, and then when I also on the 2019 period, I know that I need to invest, but I don't know which direction I want to go. So I go because I live in Seberang Jaya here, so the Charlie Park, the Sunway area, there is a lot of banks. So I went through all the banks that can be found there, like M Bank, Maybank, Hong Leong Bank, a lot of bank, Affin
You
Bank.
went shopping virtually
Shopping for investment tools or funds. And in the end, I know that I want equities, but I don't know that I can actually go for stock yet. So in the end, I go for the company Bank A, and then I get this East Spring Dynasty equity fund.
Also unit trust, right?
Yeah, also unit trust. So from there, and then I think I only get in serious on the stock market during early stage of the COVID, the index all this crash time. So that's the time where I come into the stock more, participate more lah.
Right.
That's the area. Then from there to till now.
So we'll talk about your experience later on, but I want to move on to Asher right now, right? How do you get into investing?
Right, so for me, my journey to investing is a bit similar to Weei Kai. So it really started to take off when I start to enter the workforce. So the same thing as well. So but before that, I did not have any investment experience or so on. So when I started out, when you start working, you start to know the value of money. I think that's what most people go through. So basically what I did was I did some research first, of course, getting to know all those different classes of investment. You have your equities, unit trusts, bonds, and so on. So it was when I only started working, then I started to dabble a bit in investing. So the first stock that I bought was actually E&O. But it dropped a lot after COVID as well. And the reason why I bought is because, I'm from Penang Island. So their so-called luxury properties, straight ski around the area is extremely famous. Although they are not that famous in not so-called peninsula, but in other states of Malaysia. So that was when I first started into investing. So then, that's all. Not as interesting as Weei Kai's journey, but yeah.
Yeah, I've got a question to both of you, and maybe we can start off with Asher this round first. What is the motivation for you guys to start investing? That's something that I have not heard in the answer. So investing is important. What was it that really kickstart? Was it because you came to a realization that you don't want to be an employee? Was it a realization that based on what you are being paid and the amount of money you're getting was not sufficient? What was it? Or was it your girlfriend's chasing you to get married? Things like that. There must be some personal reason that is different than our standard. Oh yeah, we need to invest. Oh yeah, it's important. There must be something personal that causes. So Asher, maybe you want to start off with that.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I think the reasons, John, that you have mentioned just now are the common reasons that people start to investing, and they definitely fall into one of them. So I think the main triggering point is that when I first joined the workforce, because I had a master's degree, I might or might not have a bit, I'm not sure, maybe unrealistic expectations and so on. So first, so looking at my Yeah, so basically, I mean, going to the workforce, then you will start to realize the importance of money, and then that is where I start. Oh, I need to have alternative sources of income. So for me, it's not really like to stop working. For me, it's more like to have a alternative source of income so that I can grow basically my capital and my net worth more lah.
Right.
What about Weei Kai?
What came into realization is because I know very clearly that working as an employee cannot get me through this cycle of employment, or simply say get rich, by seeing my parents as an example. So they have working, I think right now it's already more than 30 years or so. So they are still working, and I don't like this idea of working through my ass and still not making my first million. So, but they actually have some investment on the stock, but they didn't. They're auntie uncle so they only hear for like tips or follow their friend buy what, then buy what, sell what, then something like this, and then they get burned, and they have very bad experience. So I told my parents that if you expose me earlier, probably I can cut short my cycle of the I don't say get rich but I want to be a financial freedom or maybe financial abundance further in my later stage. So this is where when I start to work, only they only expose me all this on the unit trust, all these things, get involved of me. So then only I know that, oh, actually, I'm actually good on money, and I want to, if I can, I told them that you should expose me earlier, and then let me decide on my direction. So, but that's also a good thing. I get to relax through my bachelor, or basically have fun on my bachelor. Then only I come into workforce and face all this reality. So this is my idea of investing, is to be out of this employment cycle, and in the later so that I can achieve a state that is financial freedom to abundance level.
So what do your parents think about your involvement in the stock market, both of you? I guess, Asher, we'll start with you.
Oh, for me, they're actually quite supportive. So I actually listened to a few of the guests on your podcast.
Yeah.
So mine is a bit different. They are quite familiar in this sense. They do have some investment as well, but they are more of like it's more like freedom. They give me quite a lot of freedom, so they don't really
restrict.
Yes. So it's just so basically it's like, so right, or Azure, you are an adult now, so you have to research, make your own decisions, and take full responsibility for what you did now. So that's it.
Right.
Okay.
So I mean, like, how about for example, sometimes friends and maybe other family members can, kind of influence, or at least try to influence, maybe they're very supportive of the stock market, or they are like very anti stock market or any form of investing because it's gambling. Do you face anything like that beyond your family and friends and all that?
For me, not really. So for me, my friends are either those that do not involve themselves in the stock market, so they are not really like anti stock market, and there are another group of friends who's one that are extremely active in investing. So some have even ventured into using derivatives, I think CFD and so on, and he made quite a lot of amount. He made quite a lot, but so far I would say more on the neutral side, but definitely none that are against. Yeah.
So how about Weei Kai then?
Basically, my parents is quite supportive. My mom, basically, I'm managing my family fund, so she provide me a lot of FD money. She knows that right now the FD is very low, so might as well give me to invest and in in exchange, I do give back a good return. I promise them that I benchmark EPF return by 0.5 to 1.0, this kind of area. So, and I did live up to the promise lah. So then she keep on pumping in more fresh money. So I'm very happy with that. And then regarding supportive, yeah, they are very supportive, and my friends around, I think the only one that they are playing is the early stage is forex. Then the rest is I'm actually the most into the stock market and participate the most lah.
Understand.
Right.
Between the both of you, and you mentioned just now your circle of friends, right? Okay, let's start out with personally both of you first before we move on to your friends. Is that what do you think was your biggest hindrance factor before you ventured into the stock market? Meaning, you guys started off with unit trust or something a lot in a way safer, and then what was the light bulb that allowed you guys to overcome that barrier into the stock market? Maybe we start with Weei Kai because he had a longer journey in unit trust, quote unquote. What was the like? Was it because of the 100 ringgit return that you said just now and said, screw this, I'm not paying fees, I can do better than this? Or was it because, am I sure, am I not going to lose all my money by going straight in? And yeah, what was it?
What was it? In the early stage, they mentioned that I tried unit trust. So what was the that factor is, I think it's the COVID when all the stocks is in sales. So I base at that time I think my portfolio, I think I have 10 stocks. So in just a matter, I think the first 2 days of the KLCI drop, I think I already lost quite a fair bit from profit to loss. Then I make a bold move to reshuffle and sell. Basically, I think I sell 90% of the stock. I left only one stock, I think MTech. That time I just leave it there because I think that it's a potential good. It's beneficiary for the COVID They're doing a filter something, so I just leave it, and then the rest I directly cut loss and save my funds from getting lower But later on, actually I have a greater UWC which is come back around very strongly a few times return back. So that is also a very good learning from this drop experience. So I think that's the biggest thing for me to
Push.
go from
Okay.
zero to 4.
I see. What about Asher? What was your push in a way? I mean, you studied so many different asset classes, and then you found suddenly stock was so interesting. What was that moment? Was there a single one or many?
It's actually quite hard to pinpoint. But if you were to answer the question where you mentioned why stocks over the other assets class, so I think basically that boils down to 2 reasons. So first, I think it's similar to what we can mention just now. So for unit trust, you have a lot of fees, little entry fees, exit fees, and so on and so on, so on and so forth. So and then looking at stocks, you basically I also want to reason all these fees and so on. So the second was that so for stocks, right? So I had the understanding also where stocks, I think you can put all your eggs in one basket, so-called, because I mean I'm starting from a position of having low capital. So it would seem that unit trusts, usually it takes time, and usually you hear all those unit trust advisors saying, oh, you need to have holding power, you need to hold 3 years to 5 years. But for stocks, I see that this is so-called one of the quickest way, if you can, to multiply capital by multiple folds compared to unit trust. So that was why I delved into stocks.
I see.
So how you describe, being at least 2 years now in the stock market? how you describe the way you all invest. I know you guys are really into so-called tech or semiconductors, but that's more like the sectors you invest in, but the style of investing.
Okay, so maybe I start first this round. So for me, initially when I joined the stock market, I was also looking more for like quick gains and so on. So so on and so forth. So especially during last year COVID, where almost every stock you buy is going to go up. So that was the initial impression. But over the times, actually gets quite tiring and so on. So you need to monitor the stock market daily and so on. So for now, I've turned or transformed more towards so-called long-term investing. So it's really like just studying a company and then having faith in it and then holding it until at least it reaches my so-called fair value target price. If not, I'll just hold it.
Right.
Yeah, for me, I started as actually I chose a REIT as my family's fund because I really studied that it's very defensive and the dividend yield is quite good. So I chose a REIT, 3 REITs to be my different kind of REITs, then to be my family's portfolio. Then for myself, I think the first stock I bought is Sakura.
Ooh, okay.
And then my entry price, I remember, is 36 cents. I think it's on the very peak of that time area, and then it's come down very strongly later on. Then and I remember that it's rebounded to, I don't know what price, to 31 cents because of the bombing of the I don't know who go and bomb something. Then I should, if I know trend trading, I would cut loss at that point. But right now, Sakura, I'm still holding till right now because the position is very small. So just leave it out and see how it goes. But from what I learned till right now, I can easily turn around with the fund I have and the average power. So I want to talk about that maybe later on. So I'm actually transitioned from a REIT, maybe a long-term buy and hold guy, and then until COVID crashed, I become more to a trend trade person. So this is my transition to right now.
So that's very interesting about trend trading, and then Asher is more of the so-called long-term investing, right? So maybe share with us, based on the strategies that you all use, what are some of the best investments that you've made, and more importantly, why you've made them. And then later on, we'll go into some of the worst that you've made and why you made them, right? And what do you learn from them, I guess. So again, Weei Kai, maybe we'll start with you again.
My best return, I think it's I think everybody is a beneficiary through the gloves when it's during the COVID time. So that is you can call a luck because you don't need actually a very technical or fundamental knowledge. You just basically buy at that time, and then you probably will gain a fair sum from March to June time. So my first 20%, I think, through gloves, I actually profit back what I lost from March cut loss, and then gain another probably total gain. I think is a 20% through only gloves. But that is the only one time off, so it's not a very braggy things to be proud of because everybody is earning that time. So what I'm very proud of a stock is I don't say stock but it's also true trade. I have 8 consecutive winning trade on this stock, and it's ngam today is the 1 year's based on starting on the first trade is on the 2020 last year September 1, and then today is the last day before the September, so it's now 1 year. So today is my eighth consecutive winning trade. So although the return is plus minus all the brokerage fees, I only earn like 4.6%. But this counter is the one I'm truly proud of, because I basically learn from whatever I learn, I apply here, and it's come out very fruitful lah. Although it's only 4.6%, but for
Yeah.
me it's an achievement.
Right, that's well. I have to ask now. What is that counter? You said that counter. I have to ask. 8 times.
It's actually Westport.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, okay. Wow. Okay, that's very interesting. All right. So I guess
I actually put a lot of chart of Westport in a stock bit, and then a lot of people just deem, don't say deem lah, but it's a boring stock because the percentage is only like, even if you gain, it's only probably 4 to 7%. So it's not a very eye-opening or fruitful to some boring counters, but that stock alone gives me a very consistent winning trade already.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy with it.
Okay. So yeah, Asher.
Right. So for me, the so-called biggest gain, I do not have any investments that I'm particularly proud of, but for my biggest gains as well is also from the gloves as well, last year, same as Weei Kai. Whereas the investment that so-called that also cost me the most money and which I learned the most would be so-called gold-related stocks. So last year there was this talk about inflation and so on. So I did not do enough research and I bought into some gold-related counters in Bursa. And yeah, but fortunately my position is not that big as well because my capital is at the same time not a lot. So yeah, but actually before that, just an interesting note also is actually when I first started investing as well, I started to also look for like so-called mega trends. So I actually like look into like ports as well. So I was thinking that, for example, globalization also, you will still need goods to be carried around the world due to the specialization of the supply chain. So I actually bought into MMC. Yeah, but then it dropped.
Okay.
Then it dropped after COVID. Then I also looked into like the so-called clean water, because I believe that water is also going to be a very important theme in the future. So I also tried to bought into some water-related counters in Bursa, also dropped. So yeah, so I just gave up lah.
Okay, so there's so many learning lessons, right? Like, so let's start with the gold one, right? What was your learning lesson? Because one of my earliest investments also was gold related. Just to share with you, right? When Trump won, because I've been investing since 2014, 2015. So when Trump won, I thought that's it for America, right? So I bought gold, and it fell like 20%, right? So terrible. But I felt a bit better because at that point in time, my dad knew I was really into gold, so he bought me a gold bar. So it's free money, so I can cover my losses that way, So, but in your case, what do you learn from that?
For me, there are a few key takeaways. The first would be where I really need to do my research. But at this time, I was also quite new to the stock market, so more of just saying, is this not something related to gold? And then just did some very basic research and then just point to it. That time everyone was in a very bullish sentiment and so on.
Okay.
And the second is that I feel that investing in commodity stocks, you have to be quite careful because you won't know when the direction will change or how long will it really take for the gold, in this case gold, for the price to really reach or appreciate. I think after that gold price actually appreciate, I think reached 2K or something like that. But it took quite some time. Yeah.
Everyone got very excited, all the people that have been betting for the world to fail suddenly so happy, right? So that's for gold, right? And then you mentioned also water and certain ports, right? Weei Kai, right? So be specific to water, you say you were excited about the future of water, but obviously it didn't turn out well for you. So what was your learning lesson there?
For that, again, again, I think also insufficient research, and also maybe not really having a good understanding of perhaps the different stages, how to say, of so-called this interest in water around the world. So I think in US, I think Harvard, they have also bought into water-related assets, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. But in Malaysia, maybe because our water resource is quite abundant, I think we also some of the cheapest water in the world. So maybe this doesn't really translate. I mean, some teams globally doesn't really
Singaporeans know that, Singaporeans really know.
Okay.
They know that very well.
Sorry to interrupt this podcast. I know it's a little bit annoying, but I want to tell you something that I think can be really helpful to you. I can tell you're really interested in the stock market and want to learn more about it so that you actually know what you're doing, especially when today things are getting more complex and complicated. That's why we came up with the Stock Investing Blueprint, or SIB. It's our signature e-learning program that teaches you how to pick the right stocks most of the time, buy and sell it at the best possible time, and manage your stock portfolio systematically. It currently has more than 10 hours of content and it's growing. You'll also be part of a group of like-minded investors that can help speed up your learning process. To hop on the program, click on the link in the description or go to learn.firl.co/courses/SIB.
Yeah, I want to get back to Weei Kai on his learning lessons, because I think Asher did quite well in elaborating his lessons or mistakes. But I want to dig deeper on Weei Kai's one. So, in terms of your biggest learning lesson, transitioning from REITs into now more of a thematic trade, is this something you think can sustain versus other methodologies? Or what are your thoughts on that?
Definitely no. But before I jump into this topic, I actually have a learning cycle through getting the account. Actually, I got my referral from the Bank A's unit trust referral to me to meet Maybank Investment, and at that time I still don't know there is a nominee account and direct account. So
Okay.
yes, this need to be surfaced out. So this is my first mistake. So she get me did not say. She just elaborate everything about nominee account, and I just thought that that's the only account, but you have direct account. So she got me a nominee account, and then I was thinking, why every time I buy the fees so expensive? Is it correct? Until I told Usher that every time I buy a share, I think the brokerage fee is 10 ringgit, and then he told me that no, you can actually get 8 ringgit or Rakuten is below, but the most common is 8 ringgit. And I start to go and dig. And the second thing, I noticed that every time my dividend I get, why is 2 ringgit being deducted, and then I have a counter Eco World, so I only bought like 100 shares. So, and then every time the dividend, I think it's only 2 ringgit or something, then the account eat it lah. So I have the dividend, but the bank eat it. Then I'm very angry, and then I go and dig further. Oh, then I only know there is nominee and direct. And after that, I get some of those I'm not performing one. I just leave it on a nominee account, and then the performing one I transfer it into the direct account. It's still on Maybank. Maybank I actually have a nominee and direct. And later on, I go and find M Plus, and right now I have a UOB. So this is my very first learning here. So people outside there, you really need to go and know direct and nominee.
I want to dig deeper on this, and yours is not so bad really, because I know some people are given margin accounts that they don't even know. If you guys know the difference, they're given, actually there's two types also. So between a nominee and a direct, there's a margin and non-margin. And I know of people who are given a margin accounts and they're trading, and then after 3 days they realize, need to top up money. So I kid you not, okay. But who do you think, the question is this, who do you think, whose responsibility do you think it is to educate clients about this?
If you make it like this, then definitely the broker need to educate their client. And then luckily enough, I didn't get a margin account. Instead of the nominee, she just gave me a collateral account, which is like T3 or anything. But every time I just use my money to buy, so I don't face any later on the margin call or collateral call, something like this. So it's still fine for me.
Okay. Yeah, because I'm trying to come out from an angle where what are at least the basic guiding rules for someone to come into the stock market? What are the things that they need to? So it's like checklist A done, checklist B done, you know, and then who is the gatekeeper at each station in a way to help the lambs rather than the lambs being slaughtered right along the way. at least there's some lamb herder or sheep herder to say, hey, okay, follow this lane, you know, kind of thing. So that's where I'm coming from. Asher, you did not have that kind of experience, I'm guessing.
No, I mean, for me, I'm one who prefers to do quite a lot of research. So of course, I also need to find a balance. So actually, before I went and started a brokerage account, I actually did so-called my research. So I was quite clear that I wanted direct, but it's just due to my personality. So I'm one who does more research, but on these kind of things, not on stock picking, unfortunately. So yeah.
You know, I actually have this. I can't believe it. We forgot to even ask these questions, John, which is how did actually both of you all meet, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, how do you all even come in contact? You know, apart from the fact that you guys are both engineers. How?
Perhaps we can start and then you can add on and see our different perspective. So for me, so the first so-called contact with Weei Kai was actually so-called through his girlfriend. So because me and his girlfriend, we actually went to the management trainee, so-called, there's like a selection process. And then there, his girlfriend just told me that, yeah, I have a boyfriend working in this company as well and so on. So, but at that time, I did not know it was Weei Kai. It was only until I joined my current company, and then I saw his girlfriend with him, and then that was how we met each other, basically.
I see. Weei Kai, any spicy stories to add to that?
No spicy stories. Just that I know that through my girlfriend's comment, Asher is actually a very, I don't know what's the English, but the Chinese is called the 学霸 style. The like what you say is a high flyers, a great fella lah.
I see.
Then and then when he came into Infineon, we are still not so close. I can't remember what's the triggering point for us to become close.
I think it was stocks. I think in 2020, when the stock market, everyone bonded. You can see everyone just discussing the
comfort zone. Either when the thing go up, we comfort each other. When the thing go down, we also comfort each other, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And related to that, this is the question that MJ and I wanted to ask both of you. So we know Weei Kai is attached. Are you attached in a way, Asher?
Oh, no, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not.
Okay,
I'm
so
not.
this question is more for Weei Kai first, and then maybe for Asher later. What do you think are the qualities you look for in a girlfriend? Now knowing that you have a love for investing, have an objective to meet certain financial targets. So what qualities do you think would be a good spouse?
I actually choose my coursemate. So we only get into together, I think late or it's early my third year. So what's the quality I look at? I'm actually looking for a mom for my child quality, those kind of very I really jump
Dangerous.
I really jump through.
You see the single guy already telling you.
Dangerous, man. Continue.
I really jump through the get knowing part. Probably normally say the nikah or what, I don't know the term already. Then I really look for the mother quality part. because I have not that good experience before my current girlfriend. So I through that lesson, I know that I need to be a better man so that I can have a more how should I say better man than equals to more stable or more secure future for the family lah. So
I see. Do you guys discuss about finance openly?
yes, she only recently probably she can hear this right now. She only being more involved in the finance world when she knows that my portfolio is a good return, and then I'm actually, other than stock, I'm actually very into the credit card cashback. So when I first teach her about this thing, she actually don't have the interest, and later on I get more result from the cashback. Then she know that actually can save a lot through cashback. I don't say can say save, but actually it's in order for you to do a cashback, you also need to do very thorough research on which card to go and search, and how to spend and spend in what category. All these things you also need to do very thorough research. It's just like a stock. So that's the second thing on the cashback credit card cashback. I'm quite into and very fun and proud
I see.
on that area.
I see. Do you think when you get married, do you think I mean, I know maybe your girlfriend is going to listen to this after this, so just be careful what you say. So, do you think it would be prudent for husband and wife to have two separate accounts or a single account? And Asher, I know even though you're not attached, we're gonna come to you. You're not gonna escape this one, okay?
I'm more to the guy that to consolidate my fund. So I will answer. I want to be one account so that she has the visibility of what I'm doing, and then later on she won't question me why it's become lost. Basically, I'm already indirectly involved her, so she's also responsible for my decision. So every time I also got talk, and she will talk about anything that she feel relevant. So probably 80% is on me, and then 20% is on her.
Okay. Asher, I know you're single, but for potential ladies out there that going to cross your path,
In theory, what would you do?
yeah, in theory, what will you do?
I mean, do in terms of my criteria, is it for
Yeah, your one is the criteria. Then second thing is
finances?
finances part. Do you think it's something that you should talk about openly? And is that a criteria for you deciding whether this girl is gonna be your soulmate? You know.
Okay. So maybe the criteria part. So for me currently, to be honest, there's not much criteria. I always joke with my friend that for me, in terms of like physical attributes, as long as when I turn on the light, it doesn't scare me. That's okay.
要求不高啦，有要求不高啦。
Yes. Yeah, but that's a joke part. So in terms of the qualities or attributes I'm looking for, maybe is I think someone that can grow together with me. So can also teach me things, and I can also teach her. So it's more of like a journey of because life is a journey. So we still let's say if I'm lucky, perhaps 40 more years old, perhaps someone that can accompany me, and then we can grow together and then just enjoy life together for that and understanding and so on. In terms of finances, right? So I have the same stance as Weei Kai, so I believe that I would definitely talk and discuss very openly about our finances. But back to your particular question, whether do I believe that husband and wife should have separate accounts? I actually do agree that. I would also strongly suggest that, but also that depends on my future spouse and so on. So the way I would do it is maybe one consolidated account. So those are the common share expenses and so on. But I believe that each of us should also have at least freedom to use the money that we have earned for our own pleasure. So her hobbies might be different from mine, so on. So I believe that some separation is good. So Yeah.
Okay. Last question. Do you think, is it because of our Asian culture that we talk about finances less openly than other cultures, or do you think based on, because Weei Kai, Asia, you studied in the UK before, I'm pretty sure you've in a way immersed yourself in the Caucasian culture. What do you think has to change, or do you think that it is just an Asian thing that we don't talk about money openly, or is it similar to what you see in a Caucasian culture, especially in a family setting? I mean, we can start with your parents, both Weei Kai and Asher. Was it openly discussed about in a family, and do you want to bring that forth into the families that you're going to carry?
Okay. Right. So in terms of the so-called Caucasian or British culture, so I think I actually think in terms of Asian families, there is more of an emphasis on money. So I think in terms of the Western culture, not really. I think, but it's just that you mentioned something that is very so-called right on the point, where Asian families, we don't really talk about money, but I think everybody knows the importance of money lah. So in terms of my family, we also don't openly discuss about money. So it's usually I am the one who, if I want to have, let's say, advice on insurance or other financial matters, I'll be the one to approach my parents lah. Yeah.
Okay. Weei Kai, in your family setting, is that the same or different? Because
actually, it's more towards me. I'm the kind of 大嘴巴 kind. So, but my mom's also didn't correct me properly lah. So if she correct me earlier, then I will know that it's actually not a good thing to talk to, because there's, maybe I put it in the sense that there is one incident during she went to ATM and go and take the money out.
okay.
Then my sister, she can be allowed to be with her to look at the PIN number. But for me, I'm forbidden to be near the ATM because there is one incident that I go and read out the
ATM number
PIN.
out loud lah. The PIN number out loud.
Then from that onwards, whatever figures or salaries she's having, she did not involve me at all. Only my sister knows quite a lot. I think the early stage, she knows her salary, but later on when she's promoted to high level, then that become more confidential. But I still can get a rough figure from what is her earning lah. Then
You know she spent 10% on bags, so every time she buys a new bag, you're like, okay, I know.
Accounted
Times
already.
10. Yeah, then talk about the culture on Asian, I think it's very, I don't know, it's probably a stigma or something. It's very bad to talk about your salary. I don't know why. Maybe what I think is people is judge on how many earnings you are getting, then they know your capability but that's a very bad things to go and judge people. So even where I'm working right now, also there is a policy saying that you cannot share your salaries.
Really? Wow. What is
Stated, it's
to
mentioned.
your
Wow.
to got mentioned sure, I think got lah. I think every time they put it private and confidential, you cannot share one. But among the close friends, like my colleague Usher and me, we know that actually, because we go by a global grade, so we know that we already work for 3 years, so we know the starting is how, and then how
The salary scale is quite open also.
yeah. So you can have a smart guess, I would say, on each person's salaries. But those people there is a lot of experience one, then definitely you cannot guess lah.
Understand.
So I really want to ask you guys, right, in terms of money beliefs, right, and it doesn't have to be investing, just money beliefs, right? Is there something that you hear out there today, can be anything, right, relating to money that is very popular? It's like it's a popular belief, but you kind of disagree with. Like, so for example, for me, it's buying a house by the time you're 30 or 35 or something like that, right? That's what a lot of people aim for. I'm not saying it's bad that you do it, but the idea that it's necessarily good for all or even most people, I disagree with. So that's like for me. And John's one will be, for example, don't use a credit card, but he's a fan of credit cards, so I think credit cards are very useful. So what are both of your when both you're here on this very popular money myth, but you disagree with, what is that? Let's start with Asher.
To be honest, I can't really think of so-called any money myths to my head. So maybe I'll just elaborate more on what MJ you just mentioned in terms of the buying a house by age of 30. So I believe those are so-called statements that originate from a different era, in at different times and so on. So I mean, with globalization and so on, of course, COVID is a bummer. But if let's say COVID were not to have happened, I mean, you can basically just hop on the plane and then you can just fly anywhere in the world. So a house actually ties you down in this age of globalization, and also having had the privilege of staying in the UK as well. So I also had the chance to visit a lot of European countries during the summer. So you actually see that this world is actually very big. So buying a house just tying you by age 30, by 30 years old is a very young age. I mean, you still have your whole life in front of you. Maybe you could just decide to go to work in Singapore. You could just decide to go to work in any countries you want. So I think, yeah, first, buying a house by 30, I think it might not be that relevant in this age anymore. So in terms of credit card usage, I am also actually a fan of credit card, as in it actually helps me to sort of like, I can use so-called free money for 1 month, then I just pay it off 1 month later. But yeah.
Weei Kai?
I actually aim for my goal is to aim for before 30. I aim for having a house which is it's already achieved on this year with my girlfriend. So it's a Prima or under the Penang state, but there is a criteria that mentioned that only the Penang state local further they can get a 250K, but if it's outside or even a joint name, they also, I think they take the foreign out of the 275K. So this asset is actually under my girlfriend name, but I'm still fine with it because I still have my first house choice, which is I think less than 1 million. I'm still eligible for the tax-free all these things. So it's still an investment opportunity for me. So the house is a goal for me. So the second thing is the first thing that when you ask I think of is Peter Lim always says this quote is that maybe I generalize it. The fund manager, probably the name is very classy or things, but in the end, you and me also can be a fund manager. So this is from what I experience right now is very accurate from what he say. So this is the general stigma of outside that probably people think that fund manager is earning a lot. Is profiting like crazy right now, but actually he or she maybe it's just like the normal us earning probably better return than us, but he or she is still a human and they make errors and all these things. So
Well, one thing's for sure, they might do better than us in returns a bit, but they definitely do better than us in salary, that's for sure. Now, I want to shift now to go back to investing a bit. And we talked a lot about your past, your mistakes and successes, all that. But now I want to talk about where you see the future is, right? What investments do they excite you? What sectors or even specific stocks?
Weei Kai, maybe you can start first.
I'm actually quite bullish with tech from from what I experienced also on the semiconductor, tech is I don't say 20 years, but the next decade is still going to be very strong, and it's the thing lah. So tech is the thing. Then the with the subsidiary from tech is I'm actually quite emphasizing the cybersecurity part, which Malaysia is there is no very famous or known company yet, but a lot of like revenue, GSL, all these software companies, they are actually, I think they are doing some kind of cybersecurity thing, because like the revenue, they are doing the tokenization, and GSL, they have a lot of encrypted things also. So probably these two, tech is the big thing, and then the second thing come down, I'm actually looking forward for the cybersecurity part.
Interesting.
Asher?
Right. So for me, in terms of the so-called sectors that I would be excited about, as mentioned just now, it would be so-called like water, or even due to like food security and so on. So I believe these are going to be the pressing issues that the whole world would face. So
Resources lah.
Yes, and so I mean, with climate change coming on and so on, I just foresee that the amount of so-called money, or maybe even inflation, would definitely increase over time. So I mean, just to have that sufficient amount of money for you to live the same quality of life, let's say 10 years in the future and now, it could be very drastic. So actually that was one of my so-called worries and also motivation in terms of investing to get an alternate source of income. So in terms of the industry that I know most, it would be semiconductor, since I'm working here. So in terms of the companies that excite me, I wouldn't say more of like excite, maybe the correct word would be the one that I am so-called fairly confident in, although I have not invested in, it would be TSMC. So the reason why I say so is because I believe both of you are also invested in TSMC as well. And the reason why I'm so-called fairly confident in TSMC is that if you look at the whole supply chain, right? Although, yes, I believe Weei Kai also mentioned that he prefers, let's say, fabless, those with higher profit margins. But my thinking goes is that because if you look at the whole supply chain, it basically goes from design, front end, back end, and then your EMS and so on. So for the design, right, for all the companies, if you have the most advanced design, you want it to be manufactured, you can only go to two companies. The first is TSMC, the other is Samsung. So there is so-called like not really bottleneck, but like a gatekeeper, maybe, that everyone will need to go if they want their best chips to be manufactured. So that is why I'm fairly confident in TSMC. Once I have capital, I will definitely going to invest in TSMC. But of course, having said that, there are also a few risks. So perhaps one could be quantum computing. So I'm not too sure how it would change. If it's on a silicon platform, then TSMC would benefit. I think they're also doing research in that area. And other would be geopolitical, but that is a bit out of our control, to be honest. Yeah. Then perhaps one more risk that I don't see anyone mentioning, I'm also not too sure whether it's valid or not, it's actually also a big part on the ESG. So because actually front-end manufacturing, it uses up a lot of resources. It actually uses up a lot of resources.
Especially rare earth materials.
Yes, and
water.
even water. Yes. So I find it a bit strange that a lot of people are talking like, oh, tech companies are very green. But if you look in terms of they're
quite yellow, right?
Yeah, but I mean, some people might argue it's a so-called necessary evil or something like that. But I'm not sure how valid it is, but that's just something that sometimes I think about. Like the resource consumption is actually very huge for a fab, extremely huge, but nobody talks about it. And people talk about,
You know, I want to drill in a little bit into semiconductor, and of course, you're not going to spend. We're not going to spend this podcast, talking about that supply chain. I think those who are interested can go and watch
the stock bit one. Yeah. I think how many hours you guys spend on that?
I think at
an
least
hour and a half or so.
At least a couple of hours, something like that.
Yeah.
Plus Q&A, something like that.
Around 2
hours. Yeah.
But I do want to touch on some of the important bits about the semiconductor industry, which is, it's a very complicated industry, we know that, and as usual, right, with anything, any industry that's complicated, there's going to be slogans thrown out there that sounds very good to the layman, but as experts, it's completely wrong. For example, right now, we know at least 5 out of 10 Malaysians are COVID-19 experts, right? So they know which vaccine is good. They somehow they know they can tell you mRNA vaccines are very dangerous, very risky, and you should be taking something else. They should be taking this special natural leaf, that can cure.
Or ivermectin.
Yeah, ivermectin. I don't know. It's so many, right? I don't even know all. So a lot of people start to come out with all, and that's very typical of complicated industries, right? And I think semiconductor is no different, right? In fact, when I tell you one mistake I did was that when I first started looking into the semiconductor, I thought, for example, KESM and what's the other guy?
LSOF.
LSOF was the same, or Vitrox was the same because the word test was there. So I said, yeah, same, But obviously, KSM and LSOF are very different guys, Vitrox as well. So in your experience, right, interacting with the Stockbit community or just the community at large within your friends' family, what are some of the worst things, right? You hear people say about the semiconductor industry,
you just want to take a knife and just please don't massacre this term, okay?
Maybe I'll start first, Weei Kai.
Yeah, sure.
So maybe not really some words, but sometimes I see some so-called reports, maybe research reports on the back-end so-called equipment manufacturers, like all those that you have mentioned just now, MJ. So I usually see that some research houses, they'll say, oh, this is a forecast by SEMI. Equipment spending on semiconductor is going to increase by so much. But if you really look into it, you can see that the majority is actually taken up by the front end part. So where Malaysia is in the back end, the figures are a bit misleading because when you look overall, it's dominated by the front end, and then you see, oh, there's going to be a very huge increase in terms of equipment spending. But if you really narrow down, you'll see that, it might not be that accurate. So these are some where I think that usually usually people use quite generalized statements, sweeping statements to make. But as you mentioned just now, the semiconductor industry in each segment, it has its own characteristics and behavior. So you actually need to at least have some basic understanding of what it is, and then only then you'll be able to decide whether what people outside are saying are correct or not, especially in Malaysia.
Okay. Weei Kai, anyone you want to murder when you hear a term that is not correctly used?
Because I'm very aligned with Asher. So before a person go and talk about semiconductors, he or she need to go and understand what's the flavor of it before they really talk. For example, we have a very long discussion on Stockbit regarding who's the beneficiary of LAM. So there is, I don't know what's his name already, but there is one person that me and Asher just told him that based on facts and what we experience on our side, based on engineer, we think that Franken will be very beneficiary, and we did not put down on his selection. His selection is actually KGB. Am I correct, Asher? I think it's KGB, right?
I think the discussion revolves around that person. Of course, he's not wrong in saying that KGB is going to benefit from the boom in expansion of construction of wafer fabs. But what we wanted to highlight to him is that yes, that is correct, but you have to look into it that it's sort of like they just set up the infrastructure.
It's the initial capex and infrastructure spent on it, not the ongoing operations of LAM, because I doubt that person knows what LAM actually makes.
Yes, exactly. yes.
Yeah, and we are just just making a point that KGB is doing probably the janitor part, and then Franken is more on the specialized things on directly involvement to LAM's operational things. So indirectly, Franken will be a more beneficiary players compared to KGB. But he probably take it on a different way. Yeah, too personally, and they
you guys are so nice, man.
Yeah,
Actually,
they
I want to
thought
ask a controversial question, if you guys don't mind. Because you guys work in this industry, and for me, I love tech, even though I never worked in it. The reason why I never worked in it, I don't know whether I've shared this story with you guys before. I used to work for Comag. It's not bankrupt. KOMAG. Used to have a branch in Penang. They were bought up by Seagate. They manufacture aluminium platers for the hard disk industry. So my first job was actually manning a CNC machine, manning test machines as a 19-year-old, as a technician. And the reason why I never wanted to work again in the semicon or whatever manufacturing was that I don't want to see four walls. Because that's it. That's your life, That was it. But I want to ask this controversial question. I don't know whether it's controversial or not. Should people who are not from the industry or do not have a love to understand or passion to understand the industry, should they just stay out of the industry, investing at all? What are your thoughts? I mean, you guys are looking at it day in, day out. Let's just say Weei Kai, your sister, or Asher, your auntie, who like probably works in a bank for 10, 20 years, and say, hey, I heard Kobe can fly, So what would be your advice to people from outside the industry who may find it a little bit of a steeper learning curve? Anyone wants to start?
for me, I would tell them that for a person that is zero knowledge on the semiconductor, they can directly look at the financials of a company. It directly reflect on the performance already. So I give some very good example is like that I really like. One is like Penta Master. It's already appreciate how many times and it can go on of bonus issue. So just look at the balance sheet, financial, all these things. They already reflect already. Don't need to go into deep what this sector is doing, what this company is doing, all these things. Don't need. This is my advice on the tech for Malaysia. But
I see. Asher?
For me, I think it's quite a tricky question to answer, whether for someone who is not in this industry, whether they should
That's why
stay.
I asked.
The questions are never easy, right? Okay, all right. So perhaps my opinion is like this. I mean, actually, it would actually be just a personal decision, but I would say that for those who would like to step into this, to invest in the semicon industry and do not have any background, I think it would be great if you could just ask around your friends. I believe you would definitely have some friends who at least work in this industry, either back end or front end, and just to get some basic knowledge of what this industry is about. Because if you really want to invest in the semicon industry, I think you would actually need to look globally. So just within Malaysia, it's not to say not good, but there's a much bigger world out there. Once you look into the whole semicon, then you will see that, there's different dynamics at different sectors. And is it perhaps some other companies globally, they are actually a much more attractive proposition compared to Malaysian companies in terms of their position in the value chain, in terms of what they're actually creating, and in terms of their technological advantage and so on.
Yeah.
Probably to add on, probably the advice is more applicable to the younger age like us. But then for the auntie, uncle, they always ask back, hey, you tell me so many, what's the counter to buy on the Bursa? Then it will be coming to my question that if I don't want to spend my time to talk about the history or the macro level things, then I directly tell them that you look at the financials, then it will be you save my time and his or her time also.
Yeah. I like both your perspective, to be honest. One is you highlighted that regardless of whatever niche or technology, because technology most people think is a moat, actually it's not. But Weei Kai's insight about if you find a company, regardless of what niche or what technology they're in, if they know how to manage the company well, it will show in the finances. And then I like your point, Asher, especially about global, because I think Malaysia is too small of a market, even comparatively to the global semicon industry. You buy one EUV machine is probably 100 or 150 of Vitrox's AOI or AXI machines, just one, right? So I'm glad you guys brought up this point. I think the reason why I'm asking is because in Malaysia, if you see those multi-baggers, especially those that have gone up by a lot, usually it's either glove, semicon.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the attractiveness, kind of like pinches people to go towards that. But at the same time, I'm just trying to give people a framework to say what are the things that you need to be cautious about when you come in, because you are at a disadvantage compared to you guys. You get what I mean? I'm trying to come up from that angle. Yeah, MJ?
I really love your point about financials, because financials is really an equalizing factor, right? Sometimes it's as simple as, the company has good margins, good growth, know that. Do I need to know how to build an AOI machine to know that Vitrox is good?
Yeah.
Right. Even up to today, I'm not an investor, sadly, of Vitrox, even though we've met management with.
I'm tui.
Yeah.
In Hokkien we say I'm tui.
Yeah. We were looking at it at like I think what was it, $3, $4?
$3 pre-split.
Yeah, so we're just looking at it there like, interesting. No, I think it's I think it's split adjusted.
Split adjusted.
Still, that was 3 years ago, and it's a 4x one. Now it's like 20, right? I think.
Yeah.
So we just look at it, interesting. I never buy. So your point is great, right? Your point is really great. Now, I've always been interested. In fact, we have a research team where we discuss about stocks a lot, and we talk a lot about Penang, right? Because Penang is where all the action is. And, Lam Research, there was the news recently there. And then there was that South Korean company coming to spend like few $100 million US. So specific to Lam, let's start with Lam, right? You mentioned just now the difference between Franken and Kobe, right? Franken is going to be more operations related. Kobe is more startup related, right? In terms of
KGB, not Kobe.
KGB. So, what are some of either the counters or even the trends that will rise out of Lam Research in your view? And you guys clearly have some thoughts on this, so I love to hear them.
I will comment first. So I have. Can you hear me right?
Yeah.
I've directly worked with experience with Franken, so I'm fairly very confident that they will be a beneficiary. So the rest, like the Kobe, all these things, I only get this info later on when Stobic share or Rondi mentioned it. Then we only know that Kobe is just a few blocks on LAM. Then actually they have been supplying parts or things to LAM quite some time. Then only I realized that. Then only the share price appreciate very strongly. Then relate back. So I only know Franken, to be honest, and the rest are really.
Sure.
For me, I also don't have specific companies, although I believe that some so-called companies that are related to Lam Research has been so-called unearthed on Stockweek, I think by Rondi as well. But I think the first thing that we have to know is that the Lam Research so-called manufacturing facility in Batu Kawan is mainly for assembly of machines. So they're basically just assembling the parts into machines and just shipping it out. So if you look from this perspective, right, definitely if suppliers within Malaysia, they are able to meet their requirements, they're able to supply them these parts made from steel, definitely they would be beneficiaries. So that is just my thought on it. So in terms of the other related companies, might or might not be, because I'm not too sure what is the extent of operations of them at Batu Kawan. But generally, definitely those that are able to supply metal parts that basically fit their requirements.
So that's
one
more
thing
on
to add on.
Yes.
After hearing what Asher mentioned, I think probably SAM engineering will be beneficiary, because SAM is actually quite close to Batu Kawan also, and then Asher pinpoint that it's actually more to assembly, but I beg to differ, because I try to pick up from my LAM's friends or my vendors. So he did mention that the Batu Kawan operation is quite big, and it potentially the packaging assembly assembly part is confirmed, yes, but he mentioned that it's quite big and probably will be involving the more to the front end part also. So looking at the size, I think it's what he says is accurate lah. But unfortunately, he's stationed now in Singapore, and then he recently tried to link me to the Batu Kawan lamp vendor of his friend, but he has concern, and unfortunately the link is break right now, so
I
still
see.
need to pick up more.
Yeah, because LAM's product are quite diverse as well. You've got PVD, CVD, polishing, you name it lah. It's like, you know, all the
Yes.
end from etching to cleaning, polishing. So you do not know until probably they run operations that you see the either the depth or the breadth of their product offering. Because I always feel when correct me if I'm wrong, but I always feel when companies establish a base somewhere like in Penang or whatever, it is to serve the ecosystem around them. Like, and is that something that you guys see in Infineon? Because when you have vendors that serve you, they generally try to focus on the area around them first before going outside. Is that what you see from your experience, both of you?
Yeah, talking to my experience, because I'm working more on the process, correct? One thing we look on the vendor side is that how supportive are them to our tool or process. So if they station here, this will become a plus point
I see.
for us to select their tools.
Because anyway, your processors run 24/7, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Asher, anything to add to that?
Oh, yes. So yes, you are correct that usually there is going to be like ecosystem, because front end fabs, they are not easy to build and also not easy to maintain as well. So actually, I would say the thing that started this so-called mini front end cluster around the northern region would be actually the establishment of Silterra. So it was because Silterra came in, then I believe other front end, once the vendors start to come in and support, the ecosystem is built up, and that was why we have also Infineon there. So maybe in terms of the vendor support and so on, right, this is a bit tricky. I will try to give my general thoughts on it. So basically, it depends as well, right? So it depends whether you are a foundry or IDM, an integrated device manufacturer. So for foundry, your objective is basically just to produce wafer. And so, like for example, for Silterra, because they are standalone, I believe they will have to either two ways to obtain equipment. First is either through vendor, like what you mentioned, a new tool, or they can get it so-called on the second-hand market, refurbished tool. So the market is actually quite hot as well for refurbished tools. So for example, if you have other players, like for example, TSMC, which have several foundries, or like for other IDMs, they actually have the options of transferring tools from other fab. So in that sense, right, the vendor might not actually be a direct beneficiary, because they can actually transfer tools between the fabs, right? So that is also another thing that we need to consider. So perhaps for them, I would say their main target would be perhaps in the China or Taiwan region, where they are like really building up new fabs. But that's my thoughts on it.
No, that's good insights, because especially when you speak about TSMC rejigging their tools, right? It's actually mature nodes. They try to move around. And then where the more for the lack of a better word, cutting edge, they may start with a very small scale. And then once you achieve the necessary yield, then only they start moving them into bigger plants. But I want to touch a bit about Silterra, and it's something that I'm particularly keen on, because they've been, in a way, stagnant, in a way, trying to find their footing. They were good in the golden days, I think in the early 2000s, and when they were doing work for Apple drivers and all that. But today, with their turnaround and with their new capital injection, from your lenses of both of you and being so close to the ground, what do you think of a probability of success that they will manage to do this turnaround? And obviously, it's not a buy or sell call, but it's just, from your perspective as industry insiders, what are your thoughts on that?
Okay, perhaps a little disclaimer here is that because both Weei Kai and me, we are only like around 3 years in this industry. There are definitely a lot of other experts out there.
Sure.
Yeah, but just in terms of our thoughts is that, so maybe in terms for a fab, for fab or foundry to be successful, there are basically a few key things to take note of. I think it's the same for any manufacturing facility as well. So first we have the yield, which basically in the wafer, the percentage of dies that are sellable to the customer, because this impacts two things. First, your average cost per chip. So the higher your yield, the cheaper it is. So usually newer nodes, they have much lower yields, but as time progresses, they will move on to better yields. And that's when you see the margins on these new nodes, they'll increase with better yields. Another is the equipment. We have a term called overall equipment efficiency. Basically, it's how much your equipment is being utilized in a day. So I believe previously, perhaps Utera CEO mentioned that he doesn't really like the word fab capacity utilization. I think something like that. So I think the reason for that is because actually, to be exact, when we talk about the capacity of fab, we actually talk about layers. The capacity in terms of layer starts per month or layer starts per week. Why? Because when we do a fab, the bottleneck of a fab is the lithography process. So the key thing here is to make sure that your lithography tools are always fully utilized. That is how fabs are designed. So to be more accurate, because different technologies, you might have different layers depending on the complexity. So if you tell me that you are able to produce, let's say 40K wafers per month, yes, it's a rough estimation, but it is not really accurate. But if someone tells, okay, my fab is going to be able to produce, let's say, 400 layer starts per week. So that means that that is a more accurate capacity of the fab. I believe that is my own personal opinion. So in terms of whether they can turn around or not, I think I have only very general information, but we will wait and see. But I think their new management team should be okay. But to be honest, I really can't. I also do not have much to comment on that.
No worries. I just wanted to get both your thoughts. Weei Kai, you have anything to add on that?
We'll talk about on the human resource part. Actually,
yes, please.
Talent is what semiconductor industry really look at. So it depends on Sutera whether they can attract talent from the neighboring.
Have they started pinching you guys already?
No.
I'll tell Fidaus, the CEO, okay? You guys are available. Just kidding. Weei Kai, sorry, go ahead.
That will be if they manage to start to attract neighboring talent, that will be the first indicator that the company is progressing well. In my opinion. So then later on, all these tool coming in, all these capability, it will be secondary. If you don't have the workforce, the man to go and operate all these tools, basically it's just a tool. It cannot come out of wafer simply. It can if it change to a 300mm platform, fully automation one, then they can operate based on very less human. But the talent is what affect or a lot of areas, not only the semiconductor, but a lot of areas needs it. So if they can get the talent, neighboring talent or outside talent in, then it's
right now they are sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm just emphasizing that they can attract talent, then it's a positive sign already.
Are they predominantly on 200mm now, actually?
Yes, I believe so. I believe so.
On the MEMS side, I think.
Yeah, more on the MEMS and also the power modules, if I'm not mistaken, and mainly on 200mm rather than a 300mm node. Yeah.
I believe they should be 200mm but I'm not too sure. But maybe just some comments to what Weei Kai mentioned as well. So yes, talent is an extremely important factor in determining the success. So you can see, like for example, TSMC. So you can see that SMIC, I believe they are also they also hire talents from TSMC, but you still see that there's a significant gap between their so-called capabilities. So as what Weei Kai mentioned, it's very complex. So another way to think of it is something like this. let's say you manage to buy a tool from them. So Lam just said that, okay, this is what our tool is capable of doing, but then it actually depends on the foundry or the fab itself, the engineers with it, to really familiarize themselves with how the tool behaves, because you have different processes. So those are the knowledge that are quite proprietary and it's not easily transferable as well. So one of the reasons why TSMC is so successful, is also talent. And I also heard that the way how TSMC so-called one of their success factor I've heard is that when they want to open a new fab, right, they make sure that the management of the current fab is able to, groom a new batch to replace them, and then the management will then go over to the new fab. So they have sort of a system of management succession. So that's why they are so successful.
Understand. That's pretty good insights. Yeah. MJ, you had a question?
Yeah, no, actually, I just want to know, like, apart from whatever is happening with Citera and Kobe, like, are there certain things that are maybe a bit more under the radar that is happening in Malaysia, especially in Penang, that just now I mentioned the South Korea one, some of these events that are happening that you think that can be quite exciting for certain stocks, for example? Are you seeing any trends, and or even on the ground, what's your feeling right now?
To be honest, I only know all these medium to large cap, already renowned, famous company that I know. Then all these on the ground, like V's, all these things, they I think Peter Lim, they have it on, or Peng Lam have it on their profile, but I still can't really understand, or I don't have the opportunity to be invited to go and really deep dive on their production. Then I'm missing this part of the opportunity. Like, if I can gain this part of the opportunity to go and look all these to look at all these small companies on the product or process, then maybe I can find out better on this potential next multi-baggers company.
All right. Sure.
To be honest, I actually do not have an answer for that. But I would just like to add on that, because you mentioned that the South Korean, I think the name is around like Simitech or something like that. I might be wrong.
Simtech.
Simtech.
SIMMTECH. Yeah.
Yeah, in Batu Kawan. But there's also actually another Austrian company which is also setting up its back end in Kulim as well.
Back end, not front end.
No, it's back end as well. So also assembly. So in terms of the companies that could benefit, I'm not sure. Maybe those that are able to provide consumables, or maybe our testing equipment manufacturers. But to be honest, I have no idea.
I see. Probably a follow-on question to that is that, what do you think and are the policies that enable these companies to thrive? One, from probably an angle of talent. Are they paying well enough? Are they getting enough grants from your perspective? Secondly, is that, do you think Penang and the working culture there is conducive to build an ecosystem that can rival, countries like Taiwan? Because, like, if you look at what Me Technovation is saying, they're not even setting up their R&D center in Malaysia. They're setting it up in Taiwan and Korea because they said there's just not enough talent to do that. So in a way, I read it from another angle, in the sense that Malaysia is good only for the manufacturing and assembly, but you want to do top-notch R&D, it's not there. What are your thoughts on that, actually?
Okay, Weei Kai, do you have any? I go first.
You go first. Yeah.
Okay, all right. So in terms of setting up talent-wise, because I've also been in the workforce for not too long. So in terms of talent, I believe Penang has actually quite a talented workforce. But in terms of, like what you mentioned, Me Technovation, because the semiconductor itself is very niche, so I'm not too sure if the expertise they are looking for can be found in Penang or not, because each of these players have their own niche. So for that, I can't really comment. In terms of talent part, we do see a very clear trend where, because in Singapore you have front-end fabs, global foundries, so there is actually, it's quite common to see people going over there, talents and so on, due to the pay and so on. So in terms of the salary wise, I would say generally Penang companies would pay slightly higher, maybe due to the higher cost of living and so on, compared to like maybe other industrial parks and so on.
I see.
Mm.
I see. No, I also just on that before we move to Weei Kai is that, so you've got Silterra, you've got probably Infineon, and I don't think Intel does wafer fab in Kulim, right? There's more of a assembler and okay. So you've only got, or probably X fab in Kuching lah.
Yes.
Right? Probably X fab in Kuching. So you only got 3 guys who are doing front end and a little bit, if I don't mean to be condescending, but a little bit more backwards or backward
More
technology.
mature nodes lah.
More mature. Yeah, that's a better word. More mature nodes, right? Where do you see the opportunities for Malaysians to develop that kind of talent unless they go overseas? What are your thoughts? I mean, even if you wanted to, even because you don't build this overnight, man, you build it from somewhere, right? So what are the opportunities of Malaysian to learn in a way?
Understood.
Yeah.
Perhaps, okay. So in terms of front end, we actually have a few others. I think Osram as well, but they are doing LEDs, but they also go front end. Then we have some MIMOS, I think is the government, something like a MIMOS. So I think there are around 7 associations, but I can't really remember all of them in terms of front end. So in terms of developing talent, you are correct. But I believe I can only speak for my company as of now. So we are actually we have already set up a R&D team. So it is going to be focused on power modules. So Infineon is quite famous for their power modules used in your Teslas and so on. So in your wind turbine, solar inverter. So there's actually an R&D team set up within here. And I believe MIDA has also been very supportive. So they have been giving grants to companies who are also investing in R&D as well. I think Silterra also has its own expertise in terms of like silicon photonics and so on. So they do have their R&D team. But in terms of if you really want to venture into more advanced nodes, because it's a whole new world, we are going to play with the latest machines, the latest tools, the latest challenges in this industry. How it's going to involve, you will have to go overseas.
Understand. Yeah. Weei Kai, you got anything to add to that?
Simply says our government policy is still lacking in resources. So I don't see they have any big initiative will be initiated by the government. So I don't think the making into the advanced node will be a priority for Malaysia. Instead of they will probably make 5G working. So this kind of things will be the priority.
So you feel it is in a way somewhat a government-led initiative lah, like what Taiwan or Korea is doing lah. Okay,
yes,
great.
Perhaps just an interesting tidbit as well. So actually for Infineon, we actually had one Malaysian on the board of the C-suites. I think when Silterra was set up lah. So I've read some articles at that time saying that perhaps at that time they mentioned that if they had managed to so-called hire these local Malaysians, which are very top management of all these semiconductor firms, perhaps it might be a different case for Silterra, or perhaps different focus and so on. But government incentives are really, really important. But I don't think Silterra will be able to go to more mature nodes, purely just due to the capital expenditure needed. I don't think it's feasible.
Yeah, it's fair point, because it's not just the talent, it's also capital being pumped in. I don't know whether you guys know. I'm pretty sure you guys know because you're in the industry. You heard of this guy called Tan Lip Bu?
It's from?
Cadence? Heard of this?
Yes, I know Cadence. EDA,
the CEO was actually a Malaysian. Yeah, so I'm just giving you an example of a Malaysian-born entrepreneur, obviously educated overseas, and in charge of one of the biggest EDA firms in the world.
Yes.
Yeah, and you guys know you guys are from the industry, you guys know how big Cadence is. So yeah, so he's Malaysian. Just to give you an interesting tidbit as well. MJ, back to you.
I've learned so much actually. Just actually I feel like I have to rewatch a stock bit again and again, right?
Yeah.
And then I have to do
we have a private session for you.
Yeah.
Yes, we
That would be
can.
fantastic.
And then
Yeah,
John will test me, he'll be like give multiple choice question and after that write essay. But it's been really, really fun. And I just want to close, unless John you have more questions.
No, I'm almost
But
done.
I want to close with this, right? I know you guys have only invested 2 to 3 years, but what I can tell you is that having invested slightly longer than you guys, 2 to 3 years is actually a pretty long time, because what happens is a lot of people give up very quickly, right?
That's right.
The fact that you're still around seriously, some people say they invest for like 20 years, right? What they actually mean is they buy the stock, it went down a lot for 50%, 90%, they're still holding. That's what they call by they're still investing after 20 years. And I know that's not really the case for you guys, or at least I hope it's not the case for you guys. And I want to leave you guys with this question, right? Which is, what are the absolute biggest learning lessons that you guys have learned? And you guys, even though 2 to 3 years, for me it's a long time. And what advice would you give to the person entering the market right now? And also any money tips, right, for people entering right now?
Probably I start first. So my biggest learning that I get from investing is I joined StockPick. To be really honest,
Rondi, do you hear that? Rondi. Shout out Rondi. Okay, sorry. Back to you, Weei Kai.
I don't know how, I can't remember how I encounter stock. I think it's on the Facebook, something sharing from them, and I go and look at StockPick and register for it and try to look for information inside lah. Then later on, I only found that it's like a drug for me, cannot be lived already. StockPick is
Your Facebook,
part of my part of my life already. So I'm very lucky on my investing early stage that I joined StockPick, because later on someone pulled me into I think all of us are inside the mini StockPick. Previously there is a different name, but then later on we changed it into the mini StockPick, because all the members are basically from StockPick. That StockPick, mini StockPick changed my investing and trading strategy a lot, because later on through the mini StockPick I formed, it's not I formed, but somebody pulled me out into another group of I think how many person? 5 person, including me, or 6. I can't remember the exact, but it's a small group, and that group basically is my brothers lah. So that group groomed me a lot and provide me a lot of aid, financials, or being sharing advising from them, because that group, they consist of 2 other young engineers, and one is a doctor. I think it's close to millionaire status already, and another one is a banker. So to them, I hope you guys will see, I really love you guys. You guys are my after the mini StockPick, then the second one is you are my family already. So
Wow.
that's my you need to find, simply say to someone, you need to find your own kin, or your own skin, the person. Then you will thrive. I don't dare to say longer, because I only started very early, but I do hope that this group of us can grow together and achieve what we want later on.
Wow. How are you going to beat that, Asher?
So MJ, just for me to repeat your 2 questions to make sure that I still have them in my mind.
Yeah.
So you're saying your first question would be, what are the biggest lessons learned throughout my investing journey, right? That's your first question.
Right. So yes.
Okay, and the second is about my perspective on money, or is it something?
No, it's more what you would tell someone just entering the market, right? So they're kind of the same question actually.
Okay, all right. So for that, I definitely agree with you, Kai. I think investing is actually fun if you do it right, and you definitely need to have you need to have information from reputable sources, or you need to have a group of maybe friends or trusted person. So I believe like what both of you have been doing, John and MJ, is extremely good. I'm actually a fan of both of you guys.
Thank you.
I listen to a podcast, so it's a privilege for me and Weei Kai to be on here. I never thought that we'll be able to hear our voices on it. So I believe those that entering the stock market definitely should look to guys like you, Stockbait, like both of you, which really give credible information. I believe that is a very important thing to do, because investing in stock market is sometimes not just about the figures. You really you need to understand the company, understand what it's doing, what is its role in the whole world, and so on. And it's not just merely like buying shares, or you're just seeing the figures jumping up and jumping down. So I think the biggest lesson to summarize that, find a group of friends or get reliable sources of information for you to start your investing journey. If not, you will get disillusioned and then you will just drop off and say, oh, stock market, not for me, or something like that. I believe that is the biggest lessons now.
All right, man. John, do you have
No, I can't top that already. That's the best to end already.
actually the whole objective of being you got so that you all can say that, that's
How much do we pay you? I don't know. Just kidding.
the money is in, guys. The money is in already.
We do it for the views.
Yeah, you do it for the views.
Correct,
Like
man.
and subscribe.
Like and subscribe, please. Yes, thank you.
It's been quite enjoyable this session, and I am looking forward to part 2, right? The next part.
No. MJ, you're not looking forward to a part 2. You're looking forward for a visit where they host us in Penang.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and if you can
visit
get
the factories,
us inside access into the factory,
Hopefully
that's what I'm
I'm
hoping.
I want to talk to the Lam Research Malaysia CEO. Okay?
Yeah. I want to see the CVD machine. Okay.
Yeah. Guys, for those who are listening, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I think it's a great peek into not necessarily someone who's very typical of our guests, veteran 10-15 year experience, but also not someone who's totally new, someone in between, someone still learning. Two people are still learning the ropes, still very ambitious in terms of understanding the stock market and learning the steps to achieve their financial goals. And I hope you've gotten some inspiration from this to start your journey or to maintain your journey, right? Maybe you have lost your way, but maybe you need some inspiration. I think these couple of guys are that. And John, part 2, CEO of Lam Research in Penang,
And Char Kway Teow in Penang. Okay.
Yes, but to be fair, I go there quite often. That I pretty much know where to
The
eat,
best food.
No, Char Kway Teow only. The rest,
Laksa.
I heard really sad that old lady now. Her store closed down already.
IA Tam, is it? Near the
Yeah.
Galaxy Temple.
Is it? I can't remember. Yeah, but it's that auntie lah. That auntie by the roadside. Quite sad. But anyway, one for another podcast. And guys, hope you enjoyed it. And see you in the next podcast.
Bye.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you, FIRL.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.